What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. The World Cup warm-ups are on this weekend. We're doing another preview video. This one is for Ireland versus Italy. We've already done two are up on the channel. We've got Scotland versus France and Wales versus England. Two big games going on this weekend. If you haven't seen those already, go check them out after this one. And if you enjoy your rugby content on YouTube, make sure to drop this video a like and make sure to subscribe to the channel because it really does help out the smaller channels on YouTube. We're so close to 3,000 subscribers. I really hope we can get there just in time for the World Cup to kick off. So this one then, Ireland versus Italy. Italy last week did get to play Scotland. I only caught the first half of that game because the Rugby Championship games clashed. I don't know why they do it. Sort of similar to what you get to see in this series of games now for the warm-ups. For some reason, the TV scheduling is so weird that they have all these games on a Saturday and then no games on a Sunday, and it means games are played at the same time. Unfortunately, it's always Italy as well. I don't know why that is. But Italy get their own TV coverage for this one against Ireland. Now, Italy last week went in at halftime in the lead. They are actually beating Scotland. Their performance not necessarily the best. The team wasn't necessarily the top standard of team you'd expect to see from Italy, but a couple of people in the Italian team were actually impressing me quite a bit, but unfortunately the scoreboard got away from them in that second half. Checking out the teams then for this week. Ireland, after winning the Grand Slam in the Six Nations and moving to that #1 spot in the world rankings, they still hold out there. They're going to be building towards a very exciting World Cup. A tough pool in Pool B, along with the likes of South Africa and Scotland, in order to see who can qualify from that pool. So they'll be trying to use these games to try and get in line a little bit more with what they can expect in the World Cup. Their series of games is not maybe quite what they would want. They've got a first game versus Italy, which is still a Tier 1 side, but probably more on the lower end of Tier 1. They go up against England after that, which will be a bit more of a competitive game. And then I think they have a final game versus Romania, I think is their final game, which isn't necessarily going to be their best, warm-up game. You kind of want to fit in maybe one more really big Tier 1 side. Maybe like a France or maybe even a Scotland who they're joining in a pool just to try and, really test the waters and see where their team is at. But I think in terms of injury worries, they'll definitely be trying to keep as many key players wrapped up in bubble wrap before you get to that World Cup in order to keep as many of them safe as possible. Starting in this front row then, David Kilcoyne alongside of Rob Herring and Tom O'Toole. So it's a pretty solid front row. Now, something I will actually point out, I don't normally do this when I do the preview videos, the bench for Ireland in this team is massive. There's some really big forwards coming on in this second half. It's quite interesting to see the way they've gone about this. David Kilcoyne, Rob Herring, Tom O'Toole, three very good players. But you've got Cian Healy and Tadhg Furlong on the bench, Tyke Byrne to reinforce later as well. It feels a little bit like they're going to be testing the waters with some of these, lower cap players in different positions. And it might even be quite a close game in that first half. I've got a feeling, though, that Ireland are just going to wait till the end of that second half and just load up from the bench. And it could be a bit of a nightmare for Italy later on. But it's a pretty solid front row to start off with for Ireland. In the lock department, Ian Henderson goes in alongside of Joe McCarthy, who's not a name I can put a face to off the top of my head. But Ian Henderson getting the captaincy from this game, has done captaincy roles before, so looking forward to see him back in there. And then in the back row, Ireland mixing it up a bit this week, that I'm not used to seeing the team positions this way around. Ryan Baird taking the blindside flanker position, Keelan Doris moving to open side, and Jack Conan in the number 8 shirt. Now, this is interesting for me. I don't think I've ever seen Keelan Doris play open side. He normally plays 8 or 6. I can't think of a game I've seen him play 7 before, which is interesting. Ryan Baird, I would typically think of as a lock. I believe he can play, lock and 6, as so many locks seem to be able to do now. But for me, I would just think of him as a lock. So interesting to see him starting there as well, as opposed to moving Keelan Doris or Jack Conan, who both absolutely play 6 at flanker, into there. So a bit of a mix up with that back row, but there's still a lot of big names involved in this team. That's a pretty solid 1 through 8. Looking forward to see a bit more from Tom O'Toole, actually. One of the things I didn't really focus on there, but Tom O'Toole is one of the lads, it's a tough position to get into in Ireland with, tight head prop. But Tom O'Toole, I'm looking forward to see how his game will expand in this one. In the halfback partnership, Craig Casey goes in alongside Jack Crowley. I've already seen a bunch of comments from people in different social media spaces asking where Sexton is. Sexton's banned. He's not here. he'll be banned all the way up until that their opening game of the World Cup. Don't expect to be seeing Sexton through any of these warm-up games, but it's a great opportunity for some of these younger lads to get involved now. Craig Casey and Jack Crowley. Craig Casey's a very explosive little scrum half. He'll just snipe and run and do all sorts of things. He's an absolute chaotic individual to chase down. He will try and go himself as well. So looking forward to see what energy he can bring up in that tempo. Again, scrum half's a tough area to compete for in this Ireland team. Gibson Park and Conor Murray, two very established scrum halves. You've got to bring that something a little bit extra, and sometimes just having the energy, recycling the ball out from the ruck and going at speed can put teams under big pressure. In the centre partnership, Stuart McCloskey and Robbie Henshaw. This is an absolutely solid centre partnership. We saw this through the Six Nations. We may well be seeing this in the World Cup as well in some big games. Stuart McCloskey, a big old unit, very not an easy man to take down, and Robbie Henshaw, and a very talented player. He can play 12 or 13. I do quite like him at 12, but hey, Stuart McCloskey is more of a dedicated inside centre. Have Robbie Henshaw on your outside. Nothing wrong with that at all. And then in your back three, it feels a little bit like I'm reading a team from about 10 years ago. Jacob Stockdale and Keith Earls out on the wings. These lads, I feel like for these two lads, going to a World Cup doesn't feel like that much anymore. They've been to a few World Cups between them now. Still two very good wings. Jacob Stockdale's had his issues over the last couple of years and things going on outside of rugby that sort of dragged him down a little bit. But he's still a fantastic try scorer. Will get over that line. I'm glad he's on the wing. I know Ireland have sometimes put him at like fullback as well. I prefer to see Stockdale out on the wing, so I think that's the right move. And then in fullback, Jimmy O'Brien, who I'm looking forward to. Again, another exciting, quite explosive sort of character getting in that backfield. Hugo Keenan's going to be absolutely your first choice fullback. He's an absolutely brilliant player. Really hard to get chosen over him. But more and more games like this where Jimmy O'Brien has a chance to shine, it's not going to do him any harm. Overall, 1 to 15. This is a good Ireland team. One of the joys for Ireland is having such a massive depth in squad. I don't think a lot of people would say this is the absolute first string, Ireland team. But even with a number of those players missing, this is still a really solid team. The depth they've worked on in this Ireland team is just phenomenal. That you can have so many big names missing and still have a team sheet that looks like this, and you think, yeah, this is a damn good team coming out onto the pitch. In terms of the replacements, then Tom Stewart comes in alongside of Cian Healy and Tadhg Furlong. So as I already sort of mentioned, the forwards are going to come on and bolster in that second half. Can be a bit of a nightmare for Italy to deal with. Alongside Tadhg Beirne, who'll be causing all sorts of issues later on. Interesting to see what they'll do, because I imagine Ryan Baird will probably be staying at 6 for the whole game. Tadhg Beirne can also go to flanker. He might come on at flanker, he might come on at lock. He's got some decent coverage there with him there. Cian Prendergast, who I haven't seen a lot from just personally. I'll be looking out for him a little bit more. And then 3 names that I absolutely don't really think I know a lot about. So I'll be keeping a big eye out towards the end of this game when we get these Irish subs on. So Blade, Frawley and Nash coming on in that second half. But like I said, I'll absolutely be keeping an eye out for these sorts of lads towards the end of that second half when no doubt they come on. But a good team coming from Ireland. In terms of Italy then, a lot of big switching up from that game against Scotland. Either people haven't really impressed as much as possible, or they've just, Ireland's a massive game and Italy have decided they need to put on a bigger team for this one. So starting out in this front row, Fischetti, Nicotera and Riccioni coming on in that front row. That's a good front row for Italy, to be fair. Scrummaging will be a big competitive area against Ireland. How many penalties Ireland just get from doing scrums and being able to just drive you back. So you need to be absolutely stable in this. And Ireland playing at home as well, get the crowd behind them. Sometimes those penalties can just be the difference between winning. I'm not really sure how much Ireland will want to sort of win a game like that. They'll absolutely want to test their own scrummaging out. You want to make sure you're dominant in the scrum. But one of the things you don't really want to see in these warm-up games is to just blow out a scrum and you get a penalty every single time. You end up winning in a game 70-0 just because you're getting penalties at every occasion and moving up the field. You want to be being challenged and being able to test all these different things before you get into the actual World Cup. In the lock department, Dino Lamb goes in alongside of Federico Ruzza, retaining his captaincy, moving back from flanker to lock. I only saw the first half of the Italy game last week, but Federico Ruzza at flanker, having a good game. He's still involved in just about everything. When you see him in the pitch, he's such a nightmare at the lineouts to deal with. I think he's such a good player. I don't think enough people talk about him in this Italian team. I think he's absolutely fantastic. In the back row, Sebastian Negri alongside of Zuliani and Halafihi. Now, we did see Zuliani and Halafihi last week, and Zuliani putting his hand up. I know it's very tough to get in there. Michel Lamaro is absolutely, a lot of people's first choice for that open side. Zuliani in that first half last week was a beast. I'm really looking forward to see a full game for him against a team like Ireland, because at the breakdown he was an absolute nightmare to deal with. So I'm really looking forward to see how he gets on in the halfback partnership. Stephen Varney and Paolo Garbisi. We've seen this all over the park before. Two lads that know how to play well with each other. Stephen Varney's a very, very fast scrum half. It's going to be quite interesting to see him versus Craig Casey actually in this one. They're both very fast scrum halves who want to get on with the game and they want to go fast. Stephen Varney can sometimes outpace the rest of the team, which is the only thing, especially as players are going to get tired. The Italian fatigue is still a bit of a thing in second half. Stephen Varney can sometimes just be too far ahead of the rest of the team, and it can cause a couple of issues in just terms of passes not getting where they want to, or the rest of the team's not positioned in time for him. But nice to see Paolo Garbisi back in the team as well. In the centre partnership, Menoncello moves to the inside centre from outside centre last week to accommodate Nacho Brex coming in his outside centre position. I think this is a nice move. The defensive ability from Brex, I've always been quite impressed by him since he came onto the international scene. He has a very, very clean way of reading what an attack is doing and actually can sometimes come out of his line and just shut down an attack, not letting them spread wide. Very, very nice defensive player. Nice to see him back in there. And then finally, in the back three, a very exciting back three here. I'm looking forward for this one. Monty Ioane, who made a big explosion onto the game last week. I was checking out some of the stats and stuff. I think he had a fantastic amount of meters made, so nice to see him still in this left wing. Paolo Odogwu, who I knew the name, I couldn't place him, and for some reason I had it down as that he was actually an English winger, and I was surprised to read this name. I've had to go and check very quickly, and I am right. He played in the under-18s for England and under-20s for England, but he's now moved over. He's playing a Benetton now at club level, but he's moved himself into the Italian international team. So very exciting and quite an attacking threat as well on the wing. He's quite a well-built winger as well. So Monty Ioane on one wing, Odogwu on the other wing. It's actually a little bit of a fearful attack. I mean, they're still missing players like Capuozzo in the team at the minute, who isn't necessarily a big unit, but just attacking threat is absolutely there. I'm really looking forward to see how this winger partnership goes on in this game. And then finally, Tommaso Alan moving from his fly half position last week to fullback this week. And I've seen him play fullback a couple of times now. I actually think he does all right at fullback. I think they probably have I would prefer to see Capuozzo there just in terms of the back courage and what he offers in terms of a counter-attack. Tommaso Alan's a bit more of a cool head at the back. He's just going to catch the ball in that backfield. He might just play a bit of a clearance and sort it out. A bit more rational, a bit more composed as a fullback. But for me, I just don't see Tommy Allen going on a 100-metre counter-attacking run up the field from fullback. But, sometimes that's not what you need, especially against a team like Ireland, who are going to try and pin you back in that 22 through kicking as well. So, you know what? I'm really liking this Italian team. I'm really hoping it lives up to some of the hype that I feel like I'm giving it at the minute. So overall, a pretty solid team. In terms of the replacements then, Luca Bigi on the bench alongside of Buonfiglio. Hopefully that's sort of correct. That is a brand new name for me. It caught me off guard there. And then Simone Ferrari coming on later as well. The rest of the replacements forwards, though, both of the Canone brothers and Michel Lamaro. That's a big bench. That's a really solid team to be bringing on later on, especially if you're beginning to feel the scrum slipping away from you, maybe missing a few too many tackles. Bringing some of these lads on. Lorenzo Canone was one of the ones that I really wanted to put in my team of the tournament for from the Six Nations. I thought he played absolutely fantastically. Michel Lamar to come on, bring an extra level of captaincy in that second half. There's a really nice bolster coming on there from that Italian bench. Looking forward to see that. And then the replacement backs, Alessandro Fusco and Lorenzo Pani, who was had his name mentioned quite a few times in the first half last week against Scotland. So looking forward to see a bit more from him as well. This is a nice Italian team. They're obviously thinking that Ireland are going to go for a forwards game. They've gone for the 6-2. They don't want to be, being penalised with just 1,000 driving maul tries. I don't really feel like Ireland would have a great deal to gain through scoring the driving maul tries and wearing down the forwards. I feel like you'd want to practice a couple of other things as opposed to just doing the Ireland thing of going through the forwards and scoring a lot of tries. There's a lot of stuff to build up to. They've got a very tough World Cup pool. I think they'd want to test some other stuff out as opposed to just smashing over with the forwards. But hey, it doesn't hurt to get some practice in, especially when you've got the Springboks in your pool, just to test out some of your forwards in terms of the scrummaging and the maul. In terms of a score prediction then, this one in the Six Nations was an Ireland win, 34 points to 20, and right up till the end of that game, that scoreboard was a lot closer as well. Ireland have put on, not quite a B team, they've just got such a good depth of squad, but it's not necessarily their first team. This Italian team's actually looking pretty heavy. It's looking like it's going to be a bit of a unit to face. I'm going to go for an Ireland win. I'm going to say by 10. I think Italy have a good chance to try and draw this one quite close, even up towards the end of the game. I'll say Ireland by 10, maybe with a couple of last-minute tries just to seal out that scoreboard a little bit further. But there we have it, guys. That's going to be the preview video for today. Like I said, go check out the other videos that are already out on the channel. If you've enjoyed this one today, make sure to drop the video a like and drop down in the comment section your thoughts on the teams that have been named, along with your own score predictions. Make sure you're getting your score predictions on the Super Brew League that we have for the World Cup warm-ups as well. 2 days left to sort all them out. There's also a bunch of other games going on that I don't even think I'll be able to cover in terms of videos. There's so much content coming on out on the channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.